Introduction. Without beating around the tired old path, it needs to be said that memory is vital to one's survival. How many Hollywood movies have you seen where the loss of memory is shown as particularly devastating, even debilitating, to a person's life? And that is exactly the reason why so many books have been written on the subject. As is the case with the Supreme Memory Book, the author is not in any way claiming to be the first to touch upon the subject. What the author simply set out to do, what this book hopes to accomplish, is to present a different perspective on the matter, a unique take that hasn't been presented before in book form, or in any other form, for that matter. Take note, while this book uses biblical quotes and verses for sample text and the like, the scripture methods described here are effective just as well when memorizing prose, sermons, speeches, etc. Chapter 1. Memory is what makes us human. Memory is vital to survival. It is a component of life and is truly what makes us human. Allow me to prove this by asking you a question. Can you imagine a life without memories? Everything you know and what you are aware of are only what belongs in the moment. You have no past, since there is no way to recollect what you've learned. You have no experiences, is friends or family of no one, and remember nothing. Without all these, you have no identity. Nothing makes you unique. In fact, there is no you, because nothing sets you apart from the rest. Simply put, without memory, you are nothing. Some of history's greatest and most influential minds have many things to say about memory. The advantage of a bad memory is that one enjoys several times the same good things for the first time. Friedrich Nietzsche. Memory is the diary that we all carry around with us. Oscar Wilde. For whatever was written in the past was given to us for our learning, so that through patience and comfort of the Scriptures we would have hope. 4 Romans 15. Memory is a part of the present. It builds us up inside, it knits our bones to our muscles, and keeps our hearts pumping. It is memory that reminds our bodies to work, and memory that reminds our spirits to work too. It keeps us who we are. Gregory Maguire. One of the very few things that carry more weight than the direct relationship between memory and learning is the direct relationship between memory and understanding. As memory allows us to store our experiences, we relate and sympathize better with others. We become more human. One lives in the hope of becoming a memory. Antonio Porcia. Chapter 2. Real-world benefits of having a good memory. How many times have you met a familiar face on the street but can't seem to remember the name connected to it? It's embarrassing, isn't it? Or how about the many times you needed to recall an important detail, a bank account number, or worse, your child's birthday, but the memory simply doesn't stick? Truth is, even worse scenarios often result from just having poor memory. Ask any student or an applicant in a high-stakes interview for his dream job. On the other hand, how many people you would categorize as being successful do you see as having poor memory? Short answer, none, or almost none. This is due to the simple truth that having a good memory is directly related to the amount of success one can achieve in his or her life. Here are 3 examples of real-world benefits of having a good memory, which you can rely on at all times. 1. A good memory gives you a significant advantage at work and in school. Students with good memory can effortlessly remember and recall things he or she learned in the classroom. It goes without saying the same can be said about information learned from books, manuals, and other reading materials, things that are just as relevant and important in the workplace. A lot of people simply forget things they learned back in school simply because they don't use them anymore. Things that often spell the difference between a promotion and being unemployed. According to a study conducted in 1913 by Hermann Ebbinghaus, a German psychologist who was widely considered one of the pioneers in the field of the study of memory. Time upon first learning. After 20 minutes, percent of material remembered, 53%. Percent of material forgotten, 47%. Time upon first learning. After 2 days, 31% of material remembered, 69% of material forgotten. After 15 days, 25% of material remembered, 75% of material forgotten. After 31 days, 22% of material remembered, 78% of material forgotten. Imagine if you tried to read the Bible. Just after 31 days, you'd have already forgotten 78% of what you've learned. 2. A good memory allows you to work more quickly and easily. A person with a sharp memory does not need to break his or her workflow by stopping every now and then to remember names and figures or even to look up facts on the internet. Sure, you can always Google anything nowadays, but when was the last time that excited you about someone? But I know I used to be always in awe of people who could quote important dates and facts off the top of their head. The fact of the matter is that having a good memory allows you to work more efficiently than ever before, which leads to getting more work done in a shorter amount of time, and that is exactly the kind of special traits successful people have in the workplace. 3. A good memory means being better organized. When you have a good memory, you do not need notes or scraps of paper lying around trying to remind of everything and every little thing. With a good memory, you get to enjoy a clutter-free study and work environment. According to business coach J. Glenn Eberskall, Jr., some of the benefits of being organized include more focused, more productive, able to manage time wisely and effectively, able to reduce stress levels, able to prioritize tasks more efficiently, able to maintain freedom from chaos, and more. Memory is the mother of all wisdom. Aeschylus. What the Bible says about memory. But the Helper, the Holy Spirit, whom the Father will send in my name, he will teach you all things, and bring to your remembrance all that I have said to you. 26 John 14, ESV. I have stored up your word in my heart, that I might not sin against you. Chapter 3. Capabilities of the Human Mind. By high school, we are made well aware that the human brain is made up mostly of special cells called neurons. At childbirth, all neurons begin alike, very identical to one another. But as we grow older, so do our neurons until, eventually, they begin to form 3 distinct categories that perform unique functions present in all healthy human beings. These are creativity, analysis, and memorizing. Creativity. Creativity is the part of the brain that fuels the minds and spirits of artists the world over. It allows us to create something out of nothing, and lots of dedicated neurons are exercised to provide the artist that special artistic vision that no one else has. Take note that for creativity to be valid, it must work alongside with, or be backed up by, strong analysis, or else it is all just wishful thinking. Analysis. The neurons responsible for this part of the human brain matter is trained to pore over data and hard facts and, from it, deduce summaries and conclusions. Analysis means working the brain to produce results based on evidence and experience. One example is the formulation of the next move in a chess game, except, of course, the opening moves, where nearly all of the pieces are still in their starting positions. Memorizing. Memorizing, on the other hand, is one of the most commonly known functions of the mind, and documented history shows it has been used many times before to pave the way towards success and worldly appreciation. From something as small as a high school spelling bee to passing the entrance test to a prestigious university, or to memorizing God's Word, the power of memorization is at work. It has to be said that all three basic functions of the mind must coexist with one another. Neither is more important than the other, and that one depends on another to maintain stability and, more importantly, credibility of the thought. Human feats of memorization. It's easy to say that complete memorization can be quite an impossible task to pull off. In a world dominated by Google and the Internet, we are always tempted to wave important pieces of information off since, hey, I can always Google anytime I need to know something, right? Wrong. Why degrade yourself? Why allow your memory to go stale? Why not strive for self-improvement? If sharpening our minds and memorization prowess is no longer as important as it used to be back in the days before the Internet, then why do we find ourselves in constant amazement and awe whenever we meet someone whose memory is as sharp as a tack? Take, for example, the case of Akira Haraguchi. In October 3, 2006, then 60-year-old Akira Haraguchi set a world record by reciting the ratio of the circumference of a circle to its diameter, also most commonly known as pi, up to a total of 83,431 digits. A few basic info about Akira Haraguchi, according to Wikipedia. Akira Haraguchi, born 1946, a retired Japanese engineer, currently working as a mental health counselor and business consultant in Mobara City, is known for memorizing and reciting digits of pi. After an overnight recitation feat in a public hall in Kisarasu, Tokyo that lasted 13 hours, Akira Haraguchi humbly bowed his head and said to his onlookers, "I thank you all for your support." The crowd erupted in an applause to celebrate a new Guinness record and the incredible feat of memorization never before thought possible. According to the Guinness Book of World Records, the previous record was set by another Japanese student in 1995 who recited the pi from memory up to 42,195 digits. Akira Haraguchi shattered that world record by reciting from memory almost twice that number. Isn't that amazing? Memory gets better with age. Let us ponder over this quote about getting old by an American actor and comedian George Burns. Age to me means nothing. I can't get old. I'm working. I was old when I was 21 and out of work. As long as you're working, you stay young. When I'm in front of an audience, all that love and vitality sweeps over me, and I forget my age. Take note of the line, as long as you're working, you stay young. This is especially true with regards to old age and memory. Most people think memory can only get worse as you grow older, but this is as true as saying fish can breathe on land. Thing is, most people's memories worsen as they grow older due to the simple fact that they did not work their memories enough when they were young. Similar to most organs in the body, the human brain is a muscle. If you do not exercise and use it as much as you can, it'll grow numb and weak, and before you know it, you're having so much trouble storing even the most basic information, such as a person's name or his or her birth date. Memory gets better with age, but only if you had taken special care of it and honed it to the best of its abilities. Here is a quote from Barbara Strauch, health editor for the New York Times, about keeping the brain healthy starting from a young age. There's a lot of hype in this field in terms of brain improvement. I did set out to find out what actually works and what we know. What we do with our bodies has a huge impact on our brains. Our brains are more like our hearts in that everything you do for your heart is thought to be especially good or better for your brain. Exercise is the best studied thing you can do to your brain. It increases brain volume, produces new baby brain cells in grown-up brains. Even when our muscles contract, it produces growth chemicals. Using your body can help your brain. Chapter 4. Definition of memory. The technical definition for memory is it's a bodily process encompassing how information or data is encoded, stored, and retrieved within the human brain. But in layman's terms, the definition of memory isn't quite as complicated. Memory is simply the collection of thoughts and experiences which we are able to recall at any given time. Simply put, if a prior experience or thought cannot be recalled, then it is not a part of your memory. It goes without saying that the broader your memory, the more experiences and ideas and thoughts you can remember, the richer your life will be. Here are two examples of famous personalities who are known to possess extremely potent memories in their lifetime. General George Marshall, U.S. Army Chief of Staff during World War II. General George Marshall would allow reporters to call in their questions for several minutes. Then, when it's his turn to speak, he would provide answers to each and every one of them without asking to repeat their questions, all the while gazing at the reporter who had asked the particular question. The memory of General George Marshall was able to attach keywords to faces and names which allowed him to do just that. David M. Roth, memory expert. At age past 90, he could still recite from memory the elegy written in a country churchyard, a 128-line elegy by Thomas Gray, repeat the phone numbers of his mates at the Rotary Club totaling 600 members, as well as could pinpoint the exact days of the week any time between 1752 and 3000. How was all this possible when remembering the password to our email address is already more than most of us could manage? Apart from the tips which we'll discuss as we go along further, there is a quote from Mr. Roth himself. You have to visualize in your mind what it is you are trying to remember. What makes a good memory? As mentioned earlier in Chapter 4, memory has three basic components: encoding, storing, retrieving. The first stage refers to when our mind interprets and translates information gathered through our five senses, basically known as the encoding process. Then the second stage begins to occur the moment we store the translated information over a period of time for later use. Retrieval is the final stage, occurring when the information recalled back from storage into the working memory. A sound or good memory goes through this entire process. The less effort required to pull off, especially the retrieval stage, the better your memory. Chapter 5. Basic Instructions on Memory Training. Before we proceed to the meat of the subject, that is, the steps necessary to achieve supreme memory, first we need to be clear on some of the more basic ways on how to improve one's memory. According to the old adage, it's tough teaching an old dog new tricks. This is true in some cases, but not in the cases that involve the human brain. Experts and scientists have discovered, and this has been mentioned earlier in the previous chapters, that regular brain exercise and training have more to do with memory than the age of a person. With that knowledge, here are a few basic instructions on memory training that more or less everybody should put into practice. 1. Do not shortchange your body on exercise or sleep. An athlete requires ample sleep as well as a regulated, nutrition-based diet to be able to stay in top condition. Same is true with your mind. The mind requires both sufficient amounts of sleep and a good and healthy, balanced diet to perform at its best. It's a proven fact that a well treatment of the body can greatly improve your memory and ability to recall information. For starters, physical exercise reduces the risk of bodily disorders related to memory loss and increases oxygen levels in the brain. In addition, Exercise is also useful in protecting brain cells as well as enhancing the effects of brain chemicals. Sleep is even more critical. Actual scientific research shows that sleep is crucial in the development of the brain and memory consolidation. Simply put, if you shortchange yourself from having enough sleep, then you're doing your share to hamper your memory growth. 2. Make time for playtime. Here's the thing. When people think of improving their memory, what comes to mind is a long list of serious activities, including playing chess for 6 hours a day or trying to solve a difficult crossword or Sudoku puzzle under a time limit. How about playful pastimes? Light activities such as watching a Jim Carrey comedy or hanging out with the pals. Do those kinds of activities come to mind when you think about memory training? Contrary to the previous instruction, this time the old adage does hold true for memory training, that laughter is the best medicine. Most emotional responses work only specific areas of the human brain, but laughter, it actually engages and activates multiple regions, which make it a great exercise in improving your memory. According to the book Emotional Intelligence, written by Daniel Goleman, laughter seems to help people think more broadly and associate more freely. 3. Maintain a brain-boosting diet. When it comes to the health of the brain, it's more than just what you eat. It's also what you don't eat. As the body needs fuel to function, so does the human brain. Maintaining a healthy diet that does wonders for your brain is crucial if you want to continuously improve your memory over the years. Follow these pointers to achieve a healthy brain-boosting diet. Drink grape juice or wine in moderation. Drink green tea. No need to moderate this one. Consume more vegetables and fruits. Restrict saturated fat and calorie intake. Get your fill of omega-3s. 4. Exercise, exercise. The brain of an adult person consists of millions of neural pathways which are responsible for executing minimal tasks, solving easy and familiar problems, as well as processing information in a shorter amount of time compared to a younger individual. Problem is, if you keep doing the same things over and over, then it means you aren't exercising other areas of your brain that require stimulation from time to time. This in turn limits growth and prevents your brain from developing further. Simply put, memory requires constant exercise, like muscles, if you want to be able to make good use of it. Try new things from time to time, or take a different approach to solve a familiar problem whenever the opportunity arises. It might be cause for you to work slower than usual, but it's for a good thing, and you'll start seeing and reap the benefits when the time comes. Similar to doing physical workouts, you do not go to the gym expecting to develop a nice strong physique in 1 or 2 weeks. It takes time and effort and long-term dedication, but the end result is well worth it. You will attain a sharper, better, and overall more enhanced memory than most people your age. You'll notice it, and pretty soon others will start to notice it too. Chapter 6. First step to supreme memory, concentration. We all know the story. When Sir Isaac Newton discovered gravity by sitting under an apple tree by watching the fruit fall from one of the branches and then roll across the grass, he wasn't lazing around. He was thinking. For a time, Sir Isaac Newton had his mind wrapped around and concentrated all his attention and energy into a single subject. Now that is the power of concentration, and eventually what supreme memory is all about. To me, the very essence of education is concentration of mind, not the collecting of facts. If I had to do my education over again and had any voice in the matter, I would not study facts at all. I would develop the power of concentration and detachment, and then with a perfect instrument I could collect facts at will. All the great prophets, saints, and seers of the world, what did they do? In one life they perfect themselves. They have no thought for anything else, never live a moment for any other idea, and thus the way is shortened for them. This is what is meant by concentration, intensifying the power of assimilation, thus shortening the time. The more this power of concentration, the more knowledge is acquired, because this is the one and only method of acquiring knowledge. Even the lowest shoeblack, if he gives more concentration, will black shoes better. The cook with concentration will cook a meal all the better. In making money, or in worshiping God, or in doing anything, the stronger the power of concentration, the better will that thing be done. This is the one call, the one knock, which opens the gates of nature and lets out floods of light. How has all the knowledge in the world been gained but by the concentration of the powers of the mind? The world is ready to give up its secrets, if only we know how to knock, how to give it the necessary blow. The strength and the force of the blow come through concentration. There is no limit to the power of the human mind. The more concentrated it is, the more power is brought to bear on one point. That is the secret. Free. We who cannot for a moment govern our own minds, nay, cannot hold our minds on a subject, focus it on a point to the exclusion of everything else for a moment, yet we call ourselves free. Think of it. The mind uncontrolled and unguided will drag us down, down forever, rend us, kill us, and the mind controlled and guided will save us, free us. Vivekananda. What does it mean to be concentrating? Concentration refers to a person or an individual's ability to pay attention to a single subject at a given time. When you concentrate, you focus your mind to one thing only and ignore everything else. In scientific terms, the word may be synonymous to executive attention or endogenous attention, and is mediated generally by the frontal areas of the human brain, such as the anterior cingulate cortex. The word concentration is derived from the Latin words con and centrum, the first a prefix meaning to, and the second one meaning fixed central point or center. When the two words are combined, the meaning becomes to bring to focus or to a common point. So the English word concentration literally means the state or act of bringing to a focus or fixed point. One example of the power of concentration, though something completely unrelated to the mind activity, is the use of the sunglass, or what others prefer to call the burning glass. The rays of the sun is focused onto a singular point and becomes so hot and intensified that it could literally set a piece of paper on fire. Same is true with matters of concentration of the mind. The stronger your ability to concentrate on the subject at hand, the easier it is to learn, the more enjoyable the act of studying becomes, and the more information your brain can store for retrieval and use later on. Another thing worth noting about concentration is that it very strictly goes hand in hand with having a good memory. Simply put, a good memory can never be achieved without being able to concentrate to the fullest, and likewise the other way around, that having no ability to concentrate, to attach your mind and focus onto a singular topic or activity, is pretty much the same as resigning yourself to having a poor memory for the rest of your life. The following quotes say it best. The weakest living creature, by concentrating his powers on a single object, can accomplish good results, while the strongest, by dispersing his effort over many chores, may fail to accomplish anything. Drops of water, by continually falling, hone their passage through the hardest of rocks, but the hasty torrent rushes over it with hideous uproar and leaves no trace behind. The greatest difference between those who succeed and those who fail does not consist in the amount of work done by each, but in the amount of intelligent work. Many of those who fail most ignominiously do enough to achieve grand success, but they labor haphazardly at whatever they are assigned, building up with one hand to tear down with the other. They do not grasp circumstances and change them into opportunities. They have no faculty for turning honest defeats into telling victories. With ability enough and ample time, the major ingredients of success, they are forever throwing back and forth an empty shuttle, and the real web of their life is never woven. These are the words of Agamandino on the topic of concentration. On the topic of the power of concentration, it's a proven fact that concentration has the power to enhance our abilities, craft our success stories, and help us accomplish things we never thought possible before. Do you remember what they say about putting all your eggs in one basket? Well, here's another quote that addresses the universal dilemma. Concentrate. Put all your eggs in one basket and watch that basket. Andrew Carnegie. How to concentrate to the point of no distraction. Concentrating to the point of no distraction can be an incredibly difficult thing to do, but it is possible, or why else would we even be talking about it, wouldn't we? Here are a few pointers. 1. Never tell yourself you can't do it. Think about it for a second. By telling yourself you can't do something, like concentrate fully, you are only making it more difficult for yourself to actually accomplish it. Nothing positive will ever come out of acting negatively. In fact, according to Trevor Blake, author of 3 Simply Steps, a map to success in life, complaining, or listening to someone complain a lot, is actually bad for your brain. The brain works more like a muscle than we thought, so if you're pinned in a corner for too long listening to someone being negative, you're more likely to behave that way as well. 2. Remember that it is possible to develop a supreme memory. If you want something good to come out of your training, first you must train your mind to think in a positive light. Tell yourself over and over that you can develop supreme memory and the ability to concentrate fully, and you will, because everyone can do it if they only would exert enough effort and put more time into it. 3. To improve your concentration, you need to train it. Similar to any other skill just about, if you wish to improve your concentration, you need to train it. For instance, if you want to learn to play the piano, you don't suddenly start plucking the guitar, do you? No, you start playing the piano every day, and you keep at it. It's the same with trying to improve your ability to concentrate. At the moment, if you can't seem to focus your mind on one subject for more than a few minutes, just persevere. In due time, you'll develop the patience and the innate skills required to actually start improving your concentration. 4. Set aside everything else distracting your mind. To concentrate is to focus your mind on one thing, and one thing only at a given time, right? It means setting aside everything to focus your attention solely on a single subject. For the most part, concentration is a voluntary action. A person or individual must direct his mind to concentrate, or else it is simply daydreaming. But sometimes our life's problems and other activities get the better of us, preventing us from concentrating completely. When this happens, you need to strike a deal with your mind. Tell it that whatever it is that's distracting you at the moment, you can deal with it later when you're done with the task at hand. That is, concentrating. You need to master this skill if you ever wish to concentrate fully and develop supreme memory. 5. One thing at a time. Doing 2 or several things at a time is the exact opposite of the act of concentrating. It goes against the very essence of concentrating. Do you remember the jack of all trades who is also the master of none? The same principle applies to concentration. If you're trying to do more than one thing at a time, you'll never be able to learn how to concentrate to the point of no distraction. 6. Focus your attention to whatever it is you're doing at the moment. I think the former management professor at the University of New Orleans and American business author Michael LeBoeuf said it best. When you write down your ideas, you automatically focus your full attention on them. Few, if any of us, can write one thought and think another at the same time. Thus, a pencil and paper make excellent concentration tools. Summary table of how to improve concentration. Here is a quick overview of the different kinds of situations that pose concentration problems and the ways with which to deal with them. For example, if you seem to be having a narrow focus, and this occurs when you're trying too hard to concentrate, what you should do is take a couple of minutes break and relax for a bit. Or if you are feeling hyper and need to let loose some of that extra energy, it's time for some slow breathing exercises. Refer to this table whenever you're having a hard time concentrating. It's helped a lot of people to develop supreme memory, and I'm pretty sure it'll be of some help to you too. What? Narrow focus. When? Trying too hard to concentrate. How to? Take a break for a few moments to relax and let your mind wind down for a minute or two. What? Broad focus. When? Lacking in concentration. How to? Use cue words and pictures to improve attention. What? No focus. When? Distracted. How to? Free your mind of distractions or move on to something else for the moment. What? Increase attention. When? Attention is drifting. How to? Make sharp movements. Hyperventilate. What? Decrease attention. When? Too aroused. Hyper. How to? Slow breathing from the diaphragm for 6 minutes. Chapter 7. The second step to supreme memory, the power of analysis. Analysis is the act of breaking down a complex idea or topic into smaller, digestible parts with the intention of gaining a better understanding of it. When the mind understands something, it becomes so much more easier to memorize. For example, it's easier to memorize a phone number once you've taken special note of the patterns or repetition in the series of numbers, as opposed to trying to memorize it as is, right? This is where analysis comes in, the second step to achieving supreme memory. Memorization and analysis go hand in hand. As much as analysis helps in memorization, intensive memory training likewise have shown promise in the gradual improvement of brain power and, as a consequence, the ability to analyze information or situations, or both. According to a study published in the New York Times in April 29, 2008, by Nicholas Bachelard, a study has proven that training of the working memory eventually results to enhanced analytical skills. What was originally thought as a static ability obtained at birth can actually be improved simply by training one's working memory. The contrary is true. By sharpening your analytical skills, or simply ingesting information in manageable chunks, instead of trying to stuff everything in your head all at once, you can begin to inch forward in the direction of your ultimate goal of achieving supreme memory. For this next activity, let's put your analytical skills and power of memory to the test. Below is a famous poem by Mihai Eminescu entitled Gloss. Try to learn it by heart, as many stanzas as possible, even more commendable if you could memorize the entire poem. A friendly tip: go over each stanza reading them out loud, inspecting carefully, and making special note of their meanings to aid your memorization. Don't be overwhelmed. Once you begin to make sense of the structure of the poem, both in form and meaning, memorization comes easy. Your goal to accomplish the second step to obtaining supreme memory starts here. Gloss by Mihai Eminescu. Days go past and days come still. All is old and all is new. What is well and what is ill, you imagine and construe. Do not hope and do not fear. Waves that leap like waves must fall. Should they praise or should they jeer? Look but coldly on it all. Things you'll meet of many a kind, sights and sounds and tales no end, but to keep them all in mind, who would bother to attend? Very little does it matter if you can yourself fulfill that with idle empty chatter days go past and days come still. Little heed the lofty ranging that cold logic does display to explain the endless changing of this pageantry of joy, and which out of death is growing but to last an hour or two, for the mind profoundly knowing all is old and all is new. As before some troop of actors you before the world remained, act they gods or malefactors, 'tis but they dressed up again, and their loving and their slaying sit apart and watch until you will see behind their playing what is well and what is ill. What has been and what to be are but of a page each part, which the world do read is free, yet who knows them off by heart? All that was and is to come prospers in the present too, but its narrow modicum you image and construe. With the selfsame scales and gauges this great universe to weigh, man has been for 1,000 ages, sometimes sad and sometimes gay. Other masks the same old story, players pass and reappear, broken promises of glory. Do not hope and do not fear. Do not hope when greed is staring o'er the bridge that luck has flung. These are fools for not despairing. On their brows those stars are hung. Do not fear if one or other does his comrades deep enthrall. Do not let him call your brother. Waves that leap like waves must fall. Like the sirens' silver singing, men spread nets to catch their prey. Up and down the curtain swinging, midst a whirlwind of display. Leave them room without resistance, nor their commentaries cheer, hearing only from a distance, should they praise or should they jeer. If they touch you, do not tarry. Should they curse you, hold your tongue. All your counsel must miscarry, knowing who you are among. Let them use and let them mingle, let them pass both great and small, unattached and calm and single. Look but coldly on it all. Look but coldly on it all. Should they praise or should they jeer, waves that leap like waves must fall. Do not hope and do not fear. You imagine and construe what is well and what is ill. All is old and all is new. Days go past and days come still. Other things to look for when analyzing text. When analyzing text, that is, breaking down the whole into smaller, manageable parts, it is important to determine the relationship, if any, among those parts. In other words, you must look for patterns that might help you achieve supreme memory. Here are 3 important pointers with regards to determining patterns within the text. 1. Look for signs of repetition or resemblance. Simply put, repetition is a sure sign of emphasis in almost everything. For example, in a song, certain combinations of chords and melodic patterns are evident throughout, so the lyrics or words to the song are much easier to memorize when you actually sing them in a tune as opposed to, say, reciting them in a monotone out loud. As an example, we may refer to the first stanza of the previous poem. Highlighted below are all the repeated words for easy reference. Days go past and days come still. All is old and all is new. What is well and what is ill, you imagine and construe. Do not hope and do not fear. Waves that leap like waves must fall. Should they praise or should they jeer, look but coldly on it all. Do you see any sort of pattern based on the repetition in the text? Exactly. 2. Look for signs of organizing contrasts. When you look for repetition of signs of resemblances, sometimes you will also happen to recognize hints of organizing contrasts, which can be particularly helpful in the later analysis of the text. These contrasts provide structure for the author, and so as readers and analysts we can use the same tools to help us identify this textual structure, which in turn greatly assists in memorization and achievement of supreme memory. In this example, we'll look at the final stanza of the previous poem. Highlighted below are all the organized contrasts for easy reference. Look but coldly on it all. Should they praise or should they jeer, waves that leap like waves must fall. Do not hope, do not fear, you imagine and construe. What is well and what is ill, all is old, all is new. Days go past and days come still. Same as before, you can use these obvious organized contrasts to assist you in analyzing the text and then memorizing it. 3. Look for signs of anomalies. An anomaly is something that doesn't fit in the natural order of things, a deviation and a break from the norm. You can use these anomalies, once you've managed to locate them, as checkpoints to indicate your own position within the sentence, stanza, paragraph, or the entire text. It is much easier to analyze as well as memorize when you have a fundamental understanding of the totality of the text and your current place in it. We'll go back to the opening stanza of the previous poem for this example. Highlighted below is the anomaly in the text for easy reference. Days go past and days come still. All is old and all is new. What is well and what is ill, you imagine and construe. Do not hope and do not fear. Waves that leap like waves must fall. Should they praise or should they jeer? Look but coldly on it all. Even in the placement of anomalies, there is a pattern. Both are strategically placed following 3 lines of poems. Do you now see how careful analysis can greatly assist in the memorization of text? Of any text. Likewise, memorization has a significant effect on intelligence by improving analytical skills. Activity. Choose a magazine and inside an article that contains a large amount of text. Then 1. Look for and identify similar words. 2. Group the words into subgroups of organizing contrasts. And then 3. Find the anomalies that break the patterns within the text. Constantly doing this will allow you to develop a trained eye, especially for this sort of activity. The more you teach yourself to do it, the easier it becomes in the long run, the closer you get towards achieving supreme memory. Chapter 8. Third step to supreme memory, recollection. One of the steps towards fulfillment of supreme memory is improving your powers of recollection. Along with concentration and analysis, a person with advanced recollection skills will have no trouble memorizing information right off the page, long or short, including surrounding details gathered by senses apart from sight. For instance, the sumptuous smell of your grandmother's cookies, your personal 12-digit bank PIN, and that song you heard on the radio several years ago. In other words, the ability to recollect can have a great effect on your personal life experiences, especially in how and the way you'll remember them in the future. According to a scientific definition, recollection refers to the act of retrieving information or events from the past, and is one of the core processes of human memory apart from storage and encoding. But there are 3 main types of recollection, mainly free recall, cued recall, and serial recall. 1. Free recall. Free recall is the most basic of the 3 types of recollection. In free recall, an individual is given lists of items or information to remember, and then later tested to recite or recall the items in any order the examiner wishes. This type of test is an effective way to emphasize the presence of primacy and recency effects on a person's memory. Primacy effect pertains to the person being able to recall the items at the beginning of the list more easily, while recency effect means the person finds it easier to recall items presented near or at the bottom of the list. 2. Cued recall. Cued recall, as its name suggests, happens when a person attempts to remember a list of items or information, and then later given cues to assist in recalling the material from memory. As you can see, it is very different from free recall. One advantage of cued recall is its ability to test the symmetry between a person's forward and backward recall. The former, forward recall, is believed to be stronger and easier to pull off compared to the latter. 3. Serial recall. Unlike the first two types of recollection, serial recall is the remembering of a list of items or information based on the order of how they occurred. It needs to be said that serial recall has direct ramifications towards the efficient use of language, in that imagine being able to recall a long sentence you heard quite a few days ago, but in the wrong order. Another thing to note about serial recall is that it isn't an ability unique to humans. Did you know that some primate and non-primate species have serial recall abilities too? How to sharpen your powers of recollection. Much like most of the topics we've covered so far in this book, recollection is a useful skill that can be learned, and if you've already learned it, also very much possible to sharpen and improve. Here are 4 effective ways to improve your powers of recollection. 1. Chunking. Chunking is perhaps one of the oldest methods of memorization to date, and I'm pretty sure you know one version of it or another. In chunking, the material to be memorized is chopped up and divided into several smaller, manageable groups or chunks. Chunking works best when the order of the items to be memorized isn't important. Material to be memorized. 97316553441. When chunking is used. 973-316-553-441 or 97-33-16-55-3441. Other notes not applicable. Material to be memorized. Circulatory. When chunking is used. Sir plus Q plus la plus to plus re. Other notes not applicable. Material to be memorized. Apple, beanstalk, book, pen, radish, orange, pears, lettuce, paper, grapes. When chunking is used. Apple, orange, pears, grapes, beanstalk, radish, lettuce, book, pen, paper. Other notes. 4 fruits, 3 vegetables, 3 items. 2. Rhyming. This technique, called rhyming, is also one of the most popular and earliest known forms of memorization, and therefore improving one's powers of recollection. Rhyming makes use of the human mind's natural tendency to remember rhythms and rhymes. Below is a famous example of how rhyming works to enhance memory recollection. 30 days haveth September, April, June, and November. All the rest have 31. February has 28 alone, except in leap year, then the time when Feb's days are 29. 3. Bridging or mediation. The method of bridging or mediation in order to enhance recollection is a more sophisticated one compared to the 2 previous examples. It involves reciting a more familiar piece of information that bridges or mediates the gap between the two items to be memorized. For example, what is the similarity between the title of the two movies that you must memorize, E.T. the Extraterrestrial and Jurassic Park? The director of both movies, which is legendary filmmaker Steven Spielberg. You can use that to remind yourself when you need to recollect both movies from memory. 4. Bedtime recital. The name says it best. Bedtime recital. Do your best to recite and store information that needs to be memorized while lying in a relaxed position in bed. Since the human mind naturally arranges information systematically while the body is at rest or sleeping, akin to a computer process known as defragmentation, many psychological studies have proven that performing a bedtime recital is a surefire way to retain most of the information the next morning and therefore improve your powers of recollection over time. A couple of pointers for bedtime recital. Stay relaxed. Write the information down on a piece of paper for visual aid. Recite the items out loud in bed. Free your mind of worry just before going to sleep. Your recollection skills will surely improve itself over time once you learn to put these techniques to good use. They won't enhance it directly, no, but constantly trying to sharpen your memory is one proven effective way to improve one's powers of recollection. And practice makes perfect, right? Chapter 9. Fourth step to supreme memory. To memorize is human. To review is divine. Famous novelist Stephen King once said, "To write is human. To edit is divine." Truth is, the same very much applies to achieving supreme memory. You can't just study or read a piece of text material for one day and expect it to stay with you for a lifetime. No. That is not how memorization works. Memorization works by constant practice and sharpening of the mind. That is, reviewing what you have learned from time to time, so that what you've learned will stick and won't be forgotten as soon as you begin studying something else. By technical definition, the act of reviewing is in itself a form of learning from experience. It is a special set of processes which purpose is to help the reviewer gain more from what he or she has learned from the past. These processes include, but are not limited to, pondering on an experience, analyzing an experience, trying to make sense of an experience, communicating an experience, reframing an experience, learning from an experience. One way or another, all these are forms of review. For example, the minute you analyze an experience, you are reminding yourself of its presence in your past, and the more you do this, the more you remind yourself of a detail or a certain piece of information, the more likely it'll stick and come back to you when you need to remember it. In short, aside from the previous pointers that include concentration, analyzing, and recollection, reviewing is the fourth and final step in your quest towards achieving supreme memory. Theories about forgetting and the importance of reviewing. According to scientific experts, the human mind works on two completely different levels, long-term memory and short-term memory. Long-term memory encompasses every bit of information that you have retained in your mind and able to recall at any moment. These are memories that have become a part of you and play a big role in your decision-making process. Short-term memory, on the other hand, is what you know at the moment, what is currently holding your attention. Based on numerous studies, most people are capable of holding up to 7 items of information, for example, a phone number, in their short-term memory before allowing one of them to slip as new bits of information come in. If you want to be able to recall the information later on, you need to transfer it to your long-term memory. There are 4 major theories on the human tendency to forget information. They are: 1. Fading. This theory explains that fading is akin to walking through the woods and taking the exact same path each time you do so. Otherwise, vegetation and foliage will eventually find their way over the path until it disappears. in much the same way as lack of reviewing increases the mind's tendency to retain information. Here is a table used to demonstrate the fading effect, similar to an illustration from a previous chapter. After 1 day, 54% remembered. After 7 days, 35% remembered. After 14 days, 21% remembered. After 21 days, 18% remembered. After 28 days, 19% remembered. After 63 days, 17% remembered. 2. Retrieval. According to this theory, information that you have stored in your mind and can no longer remember has not faded or disappeared in any way, but rather is simply misplaced, and your mind is having trouble trying to locate and retrieve it. To counter the effects, it might help to divide information into meaningful chunks before attempting to memorize it. Chunking has been discussed in one of the earlier chapters of this ebook. 3. Interference. The interference theory brings to mind, unintended pun, the concept that human memory is all but limited space. There will always be a breaking point, a spilling level, in which something has to give in order to make room for new information to fit in. This is particularly evident when memorizing huge blocks of text, where the deeper you read into the material, the harder it is to remember just about what it was you read at the beginning. 4. Interactive interference. Interactive interference is a slight variation of the previous theory, interference. When you try to learn or memorize a huge amount of material in a short period of time, you find it easy to remember the beginning and end of it, but anything that was read or learned in the middle seemed to be lost in a haze of smoke. It's as if your mind shut out everything except the opening and closing paragraphs of the text. Similar to fading, one way to combat the effects of interactive interference is through meaningful chunking. A few pointers to assist in the review process. Now that you're aware of the importance of reviewing what you've learned, here are a few pointers to aid your review process and ultimately guide you towards achieving what you set out to achieve in the first place: supreme memory. Practice repetition until you overlearn the material. Excuse the French. There is no way to overlearn something, especially if the material is something you wish to memorize. The secret is to paraphrase the material, and you're able to put it in your own words. Keep repeating it out loud until you've learned it by heart, and then repeat it one more time. Scientific research have showed that the more time you spend repeating something with the intent of memorizing it, the less time you'll need retrieving it from memory. Relate material you're trying to learn to material you've already memorized. This is so important it deserves repeating. The human mind possesses the natural tendency to find a connection or connections between separate entities, events, or pieces of information, which is exactly why constantly, and perhaps subconsciously, training your mind to connect two different ideas usually go a long way in helping you achieve supreme memory. When you do this, you are consistently reviewing things in your mind, and so it encourages good memory practice over time. Visualize what it is you want to memorize. It has been proven that most people are visual learners. Others are auditory learners, kinesthetic learners, etc. This is why visualizing the material you wish to memorize is so important in the quest to enhance one's reviewing skills and, eventually, achieve supreme memory. Every time you intend to memorize something, create a mental picture of it in your mind, and then try to focus on it for a few seconds before moving on to something else. You'll notice immediately it becomes so much easier to recall past information once you've stored a mental image of it in your head. Choose to remember. Lastly, love what you're doing and choose to remember. Stay focused. Pay attention. Be hungry for new knowledge and the potential to be able to keep it permanently in your mind. Edward Bowles said it best when he said, "We remember what we understand. We understand only what we pay attention to. We pay attention to what we want." Chapter 10. Now that you've achieved supreme memory, here are a few more tips on how to move information from short-term memory to long-term memory, as well as pointers for efficient reviewing. Half the objectives of learning would be lost if one can't remember much of what he or she has read. Am I right? This is why supreme memory is crucial to living a more fulfilled life. This is why reviewing is important in the development of supreme memory. Here are a few more pointers on how to utilize long-term memory to its fullest. 1. Review material as soon as possible. As one who has achieved supreme memory, and believe me, not many people do, train yourself to practice the healthy habit of reviewing what you've learned almost immediately, preferably within a few minutes of just having learned it. This greatly reduces the time you need to spend relearning the material, as well as confirms that you understand the information you just absorbed. As you develop this habit, you'll notice yourself slowly yet surely getting better at it. For example, when you're done reading a certain chapter and go back to review it, sometimes you only need to read titles and subheadings to recollect the entire content of the chapter. 2. Rewrite what you've learned. Reorganizing is a great way to enforce what you've learned so far. And what better way to reorganize than to rewrite the information in your own way? It sounds like a waste of time, sure, but research has proven that rewriting as a form of reviewing can be highly effective for some people. You can do by rewriting long blocks of text in bullet form or simply tidying up original notes. 3. Stick to scheduled reviews. Take note that it takes time for anything to settle in, including information you've learned. A good rule of thumb is to schedule review sessions throughout your week and stick to it. Remember, it might take months for you to truly memorize a piece of information, but everything worth doing usually involves a lot of hard work. Once you've managed to do it, to learn something by heart as a result of reviewing constantly and consistently, rest assured it will stay with you forever.
And our faith in God. And the list goes on and on. What makes a person with an undivided heart? The author of the Psalm, King David, prayed for an undivided heart. He knew why he needed one. A person with an undivided heart has a restful soul. This means that he is not anxious about anything. He is calm in the midst of danger. He's not panicking. He can make sound decisions and calmly execute them. If you have an undivided heart, you trust the Lord completely. You are relying on God to work with you in any situation. Having an undivided heart makes you feel secure of who you are in Christ because you are focused on Him. You do know that God is faithful, right? You know you can rely on Him. These and more are the benefits of having an undivided heart. No wonder David wanted to have one. Here's an account of legend.
Afterward. The question: what is the point of having a supreme memory? It is a valid question, in fact, and an important one at that. Having a supreme memory, the ability to memorize and recall information from memory better than the average person, carries with it several advantages, as I'm sure you'll agree, both in terms of establishing a professional career, as well as being able to bring up sentimental memories from the past. Are those not reason enough to be encouraged to develop a supreme memory? And lastly, the point of supreme memory is to glorify God. With supreme memory, you will be able to store His words in your heart and look to it for guidance. It is perhaps the best way you can repay His kindness for having blessed you with such a wonderful gift, a supreme memory in Him.